My first question was just, would you tell me a bit about yourself? I know you're studying an MBA, am I right in thinking that?
Yes, I'm about to finish my MBA in logistics and operational and global operational management. I already graduated in international relations. And when I was working on my degree, I found out about gender and feminism as a field, actually, as an area of work. And then since I found out, I couldn't let it go anymore. And this is why I'm doing this MBA, actually, because I intend to work with the work in the field about gender. So peacekeeping and peace working is going to be a future role for me. So I'm now finished this MBA to start to engage in the field.
So, I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about your background and your experience growing up.
I'm from a very small town in the northwest part of Brazil. Very, very conservative town. Very, very tiny town, but also known for have those strong women. In my city, even those days, feminism, gender is not something that you came across easily. But you have those examples. In my upbringing, I had such strong women around me, working, trying to be the best of them, always supporting me to study, to be someone better, and to be greater than they were. And for me, I think this was my inspiration. I always look back for my mother, my sister, my grandmothers. They were they still are such amazing figures for me. And when I entering in my undergrad, I only had men around me. It's international relations. Globally talking is a very masculine field in sort of way. And here in Brazil, it would be no different. It's very manly, and you came across to such barriers, so many great barriers, like you being a woman, you being in a small city, you having a different look. Like, people in the podcast is not seeing me, but I don't look like the most girly or the most feminine, and this is what is expected. So when I started to study gender in my undergrad, and I saw, hey, this is a very strong way to fight it back. I didn't know that I had this option. I always had to do it because I wanted to be in that field so much. I wanted to work with international relations so much. So I were fighting, but I didn't knew the tools. When I found out about the tools, and I look back to what my ancestors has done with my family has done for me in putting this in the women in my family, I was like, okay, I have to do that. It's like almost a duty.
So, were there any obstacles you faced during your MBA that meant you wanted to continue researching this further?
Oh, yes. In my undergrad, first of all, gender feminism was not an easy issue. I hadn't any professors who was specialized on it, and even who really knew about it. My conclusion paper was, of course, about gender and feminism, and I didn't had any orientation in the topic because it didn't even exist a professor, a guide, anything, or books in my library that talked about it. And this is so crazy. I got my undergrad in a massive university here. It's in an international network. It's from a laureate university, and no, even not one book about it. It was crazy. And when approaching my professors, trying to get some help, they have goodwill, they try it, but they didn't have the theoretical knowledge. And this is so crazy to think about. This is very crazy because this is a topic. This is a matter of international relations, and you have many professionals who got their degree without even knowing.
So, my other question is, how would you approach talking to people about gender and feminism?
Yes, you have to really first get your audience. Like, if you are approaching someone that is very conservative, you have to be careful. Not only because first they can get very aggressive, and not only with words, like physically aggressive. depending on the way that you're going to approach. And because we live in this area of post-truth, it's so crazy how people have so easy access to wrong information about it, gender feminism, what is feminist about, but have so hard time to find a good material about it. And it's not because that is not online. It is. It's easy to access. If you Google it, you are going to have access. But people don't want to get out of their bubbles, and this is very dangerous when you are approaching. So I always try to talk about the topic without saying the terms. So if I'm going to speak about feminism, I will first tell you that I truly believe in equality and actually in equity between men and women and people in the between. And I'm not telling you that, like, hey, right up on your face, I'm a feminist. I'm telling you, I'm a feminist. I believe in I believe in equity between all genders, but I'm not saying the word. And after I have the space, you are listening to me, you are calm, you are open to a conversation, I start to talk about the terms and why we see that in an ugly way, why people is so against it, why people try to put in a bad way. And the conversation comes to a growing because I'm gaining terrain first, and then I start to really talk about the topic.
And I suppose like social media has had such a big impact on that as well. Like, have you seen that throughout your studies? That I suppose like we had the Me Too movement and all of that. Do you think like that's been social media has played such an important role in that?
Yes, and I truly believe in young girls and women doing that, putting their faces on their social media, not in a bloggy way, not to be, oh, I'm going to be an influencer, but reaching your people in daily basis, just talking, just coming on your stories and talk about it a little bit, putting some informations, quoting some cool pages that has an amazing info, or doing things like this that we are doing right now, opening a podcast and then just talking about it without putting barriers or being hard about it, trying to be difficult about it. I have my reservations about the Me Too movement. I have some reservations about the hashtag movement because I think that in the start it was very amazing, but people just got comfortable tweeting about it and then putting the hands on it. And I'm a very hands on it type of woman. Like, I do really appreciate people who go to the work because we need it. We are not now in a point right now where we can just tweet about it or put a hashtag about it and things are solved. We are not on that point. So,
and I suppose like if change is going to happen, it needs to be done on such a range of scales as well. Like companies are going to have to obviously address it because there's been the whole thing about like gender pay gaps and all of those things. Like, do you agree with that? Do you think that like people are going to have to take responsibility, and companies as well?
Yes,
to try and change things.
Of course, they have this great part on it. Like, the true reason why we have those gender gaps is because companies still see women as less, as not worth it. Or when we receive the role, we don't receive the same payment. This is just so crazy. And this is not because they don't have access to the information. We have tons and tons of studies made from huge organizations like the World Bank, telling, hey, companies who has women in higher places are more lucrative. They have more good numbers in many, many ways. It's not about being profitable. It's about to have the best work experience, the best management indicatives, things like this. It comes from the way that you feel as an employee to the money that you made in the end of the year. But we have this cultural structure that puts women in a position of being less than men just because they are women. And this is craziness, and companies need to work on that. And also governments, they have such an important role on that, and they are just being quiet and accepting.
Another thing is, how do you think social expectations have shaped your life?
It's a tricky one because, we live in the structure, so we cannot run away from it. It's in everything that we do and everywhere we are. But I think that I cannot explain why, but since a young age, I think that I am the person who is always going against it, even though I didn't knew it exists for a long, long time. Like, women in my country is expected to have this blonde, long hair. I just almost have no hair. I shaved my hair last year. Or women are expected to be non-spoken, very quiet, don't have that strong factor image of talking about politics and economics. And my father always tells me that he's remember in the age of 8, I was watching the journal when talking about economy and politics and things like this with 8 years old. This is crazy for me, so natural, and going against it, that I think that it was what shaped me. I always was feeling uncomfortable. I can remember being in school uncomfortable about the way things was, because I could not play football, because I could not do things that I wanted to do because it was boys toys or boys plays, and I could not. And after that, being in society, about the clothes, about the places, about wanting to go out, and I couldn't because, oh, look at the time, you are a woman, you cannot. And then has the security issue because you are a woman, and sometimes this is really dangerous, going out and facing violence, or and I never stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not someone telling you, young girl who's listening, to go against and be a rebel. No, it's just saying, don't get comfortable on that. This structure made me a very uncomfortable woman. And I had a hard time to know what is the time that I can go against, what is the time that I have to hold on this uncomfortable feeling, and then find a way to fight it and change. But I guess there is this forever feeling of being uncomfortable in the structure that moves me and shaped me in this woman that I am today.
Yeah, and I suppose education has is such an important part of that, isn't it? So, like, do you think we need to learn more about these inspirational females and learn more about the problems that, like, women are facing when they are older, like through careers and stuff? Do you think that's an important thing to learn about at an early age? Maybe that's
Yes. I always caught myself thinking, what could it be of myself, actually, if I have the contact before in a young age, with those inspirations, because you are going to face the problems right away. That's true. Even this is a problem, or you do not know, you are going to face it, and you are going to feel tired about it, and this is going to drain you a little each day. So having someone to inspire you and tell you, hey, it's okay, you are facing the problem exists, but I found this way to go through, or I'm just here to tell you that you could face it and you can pass through it, and things is going to be better. When I was in your age, it was worse, and see how much we've grown, see how much we achieved. This is so important to, and not only for girls who want to work with feminism and gender in general. We need those strong figures to represent ourselves in a young age and see, oh gosh, you can grow up and be like this woman. She's independent, she's secure, she is stable. We are always seeing the housewife, we are always seeing the girls that fight each other in the TV shows because of the boys, the pretty boys with the amazing abs. And where are the strong women in the Congress and the politics, holding a show about other issues that is not boys, romance, gossip, So I really think that we need that.
Yeah, and I suppose we need to educate the men as well, don't we? Do you think as well?
for sure, this is the reason why Gandhi Leslie is one of my inspirations. The African way actually to see feminism is in a way where you have the women as the center of the question, of course, because it's feminism, but you also count men in the solution of the problem, not only as a problem, the behavior, but as a part of the solution. And that's so true. And for me, actually, so simple. We suffer because men was taught that they are better than us. And if we don't change their minds, we are going to be in this forever state of war. And this is not what we want. Boys need to understand too, and actually to be free as well, because that is not as patriarchy. Don't put men in a hot position, like it's not even close from what we pass as women because of the patriarchy, of course. But it's also a cage where you have to be this strong man, very rude. You have no emotions. You cannot, have a bad day or even show that you are needing attention. You need help. You need, a break. You cannot, because you're going to not be a man or a strong man or a respectable man. So we do need to educate our boys. This is so urgent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I suppose linking to your international relations sort of side of things, I suppose development is also, do you think that's an important part in terms of like having countries need the infrastructure to be able to educate these women and be able to like change, so that like women can have these careers and whatnot?
Yes, I think that we are lacking on the politics. Putting in this international relations way of seeing, we are lacking politics. Like, how can we approach feminism when the people who are making the bureaucratic parts are just white old men? Like, this is crazy. This is just the people who wants us being housewives.
Yeah.
Being this quiet lady, very, very noisy, very, submissive. So, of course, things are not going to change if we do not have women doing their part and being on the politics, and if we not have the society voting for those women. This is not as we are not trying. I think that is this huge and beautiful movement around the world where women is trying to do the work. We are being candidates. We are trying to many, many, many positions in politics, and in the public life in general. And we are trying to do that, but society needs to help us, needs to vote for us, needs to give us this confidence vote and see for the results. Because if you see the countries where women is being part of the decisions, the results are just amazing. If we get like coronavirus situation, for instance, look at the countries who has women in power.
Mm-hmm.
Look how they are right now. Guys, I am in the country where Bolsonaro is president. Do I need to tell anything more than that? We had our our first women president, impeachment, from her seat, and not discussing the validity of that, but it was a very, very, very ugly process. She passed through so much trauma, to so much prejudice, just because she were a woman. It's just crazy if you just put what she passed through and why she got the impeachment, and see what Bolsonaro is doing to our country, to the Brazilian people, and see that he is still in charge. It's crazy. And this is what we need to change. We need to take these crazy white dudes out of the power and put women that has the knowledge and actually the experience in life to start to make those politics not only for women but for the society in general. Everybody wins when we stop to make this patriarchal system working in a place.
That's how everyone has a responsibility, don't they? I think, and like I suppose there's things that the governments can do and the media can do, obviously, but that everyone has a responsibility. And I think it's hard, isn't it? Because there's all these structures in place that prevent women from doing all these things, and it's sometimes hard, like you get downhearted, don't you, or disheartened from it.
I think that people just underestimate the power that they have. We as society, like, if we go out and we scream about it things and we actually start to say, hey, I voted for you and you promised me that you would change that, what are you doing to change that? Like, really, people has done such an amazing job in make us believe that the people's power is something utopical, that we just underestimate the power that we have. Like, of course, with the coronavirus crisis, this is not the smartest thing to do, like, not now at this point, but in general, we actually have this power. People do need our vote to be voted and keep going on their part. So, yes, we have the responsibility to talk about it, to change it, but also to be demanding. We do not demand those things. We demand, like, we go back to the problematic behind Me Too movements and hashtags. We do demand this on Instagram. We make TikToks about it. We tweet about it. But really demanding, like, on the Congress, in the streets, in the houses, where are we? We have women doing that, but it's not enough. And this is not just women's part. We need men there as allies doing the same, demanding the same changes.
I suppose it's representation. I mean, how do you think we can get more women to be elected into positions, like in politics? Like, do you think it's not easy, is it?
No, but because we do not know this is an option. And I come to understand that we do not know that we can do that. Okay, we saw Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States. Oh gosh, and she represents so many types of women and some actually many types of people. But this is 2021, and now we are seeing a woman as a vice president in a country as the United States. But for a girl here in Brazil, what Kamala Harris represents in the reality, if you are not a girl who already has some privileges, some access to education, some access to knowledge, to information, if you cannot have the opportunity to have a second language as English, to go out of a country and have an experience, you probably will not see Kamala Harris as an option for your future. And we need to make girls understand that they can be Kamala Harris on their cities, on their states, on their countries. We need to give them not only the knowledge, but the encouragement. And this is why I think that young girls should have those representations in very young age, because we need to know that we have what it takes to be a Kamala Harris, as an instance, or actually not only a politician, but to be in the public service, not as a basic role, but in a massive role. Women should be doing, laws. Women should be doing politics. Women should starting their own business. And actually, going backwards, we still have women in some countries who cannot even have a house, own a house. They cannot buy land. They cannot have their own house. They could not even go out of their countries without an authorization of a man. And I think this is the things that we have to balance. We reached a Kamala Harris, but we cannot forget about the women who is not able to buy their own houses. And by balancing that, by doing something to change those situations around those women's places and countries and in your area, this is how we can make girls believe that they can, because it's not only in America.
And how do you think what do you think needs to happen for that to be able to change?
I think that the organizations that already exist should really change the way that they are acting. As an example, we have the UN Women. It's a massive organization about women's rights, and they are doing an amazing job in Europe. They are doing an amazing job in countries as Brazil, yes, but the approach really needs to change. If the idea of organizations who works with women is changed, those situations they should really be trying to educate young girls on vulnerable situations, and this is not what I see. When I stop to analyze the reports and see how the things are being doing, we are not educating the girls who need it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there is some actions where they go to these very poor countries, they start to teach girls math and English and science and things like this. But where is the gender issues being approached?
Mm-hmm.
Where are people giving girls the structure to have the education to understand how their life is going to be in the future? We do not have that. Even with those actions, even like it's not enough telling girls that they are not less than men. This is so superficial. This is so not working. Okay, they are got to understand that they are not less. Come on, we need more than that. We need someone who is teaching the girls, look, this is the structure that you are going to face it, and you are in this position that is going to make your life even harder, but that's the path that you are going to trail to change it, that you are going to walk to change it, like through education, through human rights, through your work in your community. Everything that we do can be a feminist movement. If I am a woman who are in my house right now baking and just selling my food to have a means of life and be independent, I'm being a feminist. I'm doing something that they are not expecting me to do, that is being independent and do something for myself. And we need to speak about it, and tell that this is a feminist act that is going on there. If I stop here and I take my time in a Saturday to talk about it and show that so normal, it's so normal to talk about woman's reality. This is a feminist act that we are doing here. Can be simple, can be very easy to do. This can be very easy going, actually. We just need to start to really addressing the problem and really talking about it. I think that when we see organizations that are just doing things about feminism and gender, they are so superficial. You were talking about gaps, but how talking about gaps is going to change the reality of the girls who really need it? And actually, me, Carol, here in Brazil, I can start to take my time to go to make some materials for young girls who are in a vulnerable situation. Eleanor, back in the UK, can do the same for the girls in her community. And you, they are listening to that, can do the same for the girls in your community, because we know our realities. So if we start to educate the girls and say, hey, this is how you can change that, this is you're going to pass through this and face those situations, but you can call this number, you can do that, you can make this and this and this to be safer or to be stronger, and find your path.
And I did have this one question. What if you had to choose 3 of your biggest inspirations? Who do you think you'd choose? That's a hard one, I know.
Oh, this is such a hard one.
Yeah.
But being right away, the first women that I really admire, and this is from the field, is Cynthia and Lowe. She's a writer, she's an activist, she's actually my biggest inspiration. Like this woman is so amazing. She actually writes methods for feminist studies and things like this, and she has this very different and amazing way to approach Gender, Feminism, and International Relations, that is so easy to process, so easy to read. She has this way where she's talking about method, but she's telling a story. You read the book, The Curious Feminist. I'm going to throw this indication here, and you are going to see that it's an easy reading and so full of information and of amazing analysis. So Cynthia Lo is going to be the first one. Oh my gosh, that is the second one. Her name is Agandipi Leslie. She's not someone famous, unfortunately. She is one of the most actually famous writers in African feminism, but she's not known worldwide because of that. And I have such an amazing inspiration, not only because of what she writes, but because of her story, her background. I think that she inspired me to keep doing, even though the hard path I have in Brazil working with gender. And she's such a powerhouse. People should Google her, Agandipi Leslie. And to finish, of course, I have to say a Brazilian woman, and she's an amazing inspiration for me. Her name is Djamila, and she's just, oh my gosh, she's just a goddess. I can not even start to talk about her. She is amazing. She has many books going around. You can find it in Portuguese, you can find it in English. So Google Djamila Ribeiro. She is amazing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I suppose, I mean, another question I had is, if you had one top tip for a young woman, what would it be? It's hard.
This is the hardest question.
Things to say, isn't there?
Yeah. No, gosh, this is a hard one. But if I could give a young girl a tip, is always try to see things both ways. We are taught to see things in one way, one side, bro, only one option, only one path, only God, or one religion. Trying to see things both ways. If you feel uncomfortable, you go back to that uncomfortable feeling. If you feel uncomfortable with something, Google it. Like you young girls, you have Google. We haven't in our days. Google it. Try to find informations about it. Try to talk about it with people that you trust, with women that you trust, you admire, and don't be satisfied with answers that does not really solve your question. If you are curious about it, if you wanna know something, if you wanna see something, try to see all the options around it. If it is politics, try to see all the sides and understand all the sides and see why people behave like that. If it is about society, Google it. Try to see and understand why people act like that, why women face those problems, or why you are being treated like that and how you can change it. Nowadays we have those informations in our hands. We have the privilege of Googling things. If you can listen to this podcast, it's because you have internet, you have access to a network, and you know how to get the information. So get it. Don't wait for people to give you the information, to give you the answer. Go find your answer. I think this is the best tip that I can ever give to a young girl.
Okay. I mean, those are all the questions. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to me today.